The ship came down through the clouds like a falling star. Snow and ice covered everything on the planet below. This world was called HFY, and it was one of the coldest places in the known galaxy. The wind never stopped blowing here. The sun was small and weak in the sky. Nothing should have been alive on this frozen rock. But something was. Lieutenant Una Park stood at the window of the survey vessel and watched the white landscape grow closer. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life. She had seen many strange worlds in her 10 years of service. With Earth's united fleet, she had walked on planets made of crystal. She had swum in oceans that glowed with living light. But she had never felt cold like the cold that waited for her on HFY. "Scanners are picking up life signs," said Tizuko Kim from his station. He was the ship's engineer, a quiet man with clever hands and tired eyes. About 2 kilometers north of the landing zone. "It's weak, but it's there." Captain Jiwon Beek turned in her command chair. She was a small woman with a hard face and eyes that missed nothing. "What kind of life signs?" "Wrath," Taiho said. "At least, I think so." The readings matched their biology. Una felt her heart beat a little faster. The Wrath were a species that looked something like wolves, but they walked on 2 legs and had hands that could build and create. They had silver-white fur and eyes like burning amber. They were proud and fierce and did not like outsiders. Earth had tried to make friends with them many times, but the Wrath always kept their distance. "There was supposed to be a Wrath colony on this planet," Una said. "A seasonal research station. But our intel said they evacuated 3 days ago." "Then why are we picking up life signs?" Captain Beek asked. Nobody had an answer. The ship landed with a gentle bump. Una was already pulling on her thermal suit before the engines finished cooling down. The suit was thick and heavy, designed to keep a human alive in temperatures that would freeze blood in seconds. She checked her scanner, her emergency beacon, and her medical kit. She did not bring a weapon. She never did. "I want to go out there," she said. Captain Beek looked at her for a long moment. "You have 1 hour. If you're not back by then, we leave without you." "Understood." Taiho stood up from his station. "I'll go with her." The captain nodded. "Keep your comms open. Both of you." The airlock door opened, and the cold hit Una like a fist. Even through her suit, she could feel it trying to reach her, trying to find a way inside. The wind screamed in her ears. Snow flew sideways, so thick that she could barely see 10 meters ahead. She started walking. Taiho followed close behind her, his boots crunching through the frozen ground. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. They just walked toward the life signs on Una's scanner, 1 step at a time. After 20 minutes, they found the colony, or what was left of it. The shelters had collapsed under the weight of the snow. Supply containers lay scattered across the ground, some of them still sealed, their contents frozen solid. Equipment was everywhere, abandoned in a hurry. It looked like everyone had left in a great rush and had not bothered to take anything with them. "What happened here?" Taiho asked, his voice crackling through the comm. Una shook her head. She did not know. But the life signs on her scanner were getting stronger. Whatever was still alive was close. She walked past the fallen shelter and stopped. There was a thermal tent ahead, half buried in the snow. It had been crushed by something heavy, maybe a piece of falling equipment or maybe just the weight of the ice. The fabric was torn and flapping in the wind. Una moved closer. She could see shapes inside the tent. 2 of them. 1 large, 1 small. Her heart began to pound. She pulled away the torn fabric and looked inside. For a moment, she could not understand what she was seeing. Then her mind caught up with her eyes, and she felt something break inside her chest. A Wrath female lay on the ground. Her silver fur was covered in frost. Her eyes were closed. She was not breathing. She had been dead for hours, maybe longer. But she had not died alone. Curled against her chest, wrapped in her frozen arms, was a cub. It was tiny, no bigger than a human toddler. Its fur was the same silver-white as its mother's, but with a faint purple shine that caught the weak light. Its eyes were closed. Its small body was shaking. It was still alive. Yuna dropped to her knees. She reached out with trembling hands and touched the cub's fur. It was cold, so cold, and getting colder with every second. The cub's breathing was shallow and weak. Its heart was barely beating. "Lieutenant," Taiho's voice came through the com. "We need to go. The storm is getting worse. Command says to leave any non-essential." Yuna was not listening. She was already unzipping her thermal suit. The cold rushed in immediately, biting at her skin like a living thing. She gasped but did not stop. She reached into the tent and gently, so gently, lifted the cub away from its dead mother. The little creature whimpered, a sound so small and sad that it made Yuna's eyes fill with tears. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've got you." She pressed the cub against her bare chest, feeling its cold fur against her warm skin. Then she sealed her suit around them both, trapping the cub inside, against her heart. The cub's shaking began to slow. Its breathing became a little stronger. Yuna could feel its tiny heartbeat fluttering against her own, weak but steady. Alive. Still alive. Taiho appeared beside her. His eyes went wide behind his helmet when he saw what she had done. "Lieutenant, what? We're leaving," Yuna said. Her voice was calm, but there was iron in it. "All of us." She stood up, one arm wrapped around the small bulge in her suit, and began walking back toward the ship. The wind howled around her. The snow tried to blind her. The cold tried to stop her. But Yuna Park kept walking. She had made a promise, even if the cub could not hear it. Even if no one else understood. She had made a promise, and she would keep it. No child would die alone in the cold. Not while she still had warmth to give. An abandoned cub was left to frost. Part 2. The medical bay was small and bright and full of machines that beeped and hummed. Yuna stood in the corner, her arms wrapped around herself, watching the doctor work. She was still cold from her time outside, but she did not care about that. She only cared about the small creature lying on the table. Dr. Minho Cha moved quickly but carefully. He was an older man with gray hair and gentle hands. He had treated many different species in his years with the fleet, but he had never treated a Vreth before. He was doing his best with what he knew. "Core temperature was dangerously low," he said without looking up. "Another 10 minutes out there, and we would not be having this conversation. The cub would be dead." Yuna closed her eyes. 10 minutes. That was how close it had been. What saved her? Captain Beak asked. She stood near the door, her arms crossed, her face showing nothing. Minho glanced at Yuna. She did. The skin-to-skin contact. Humans run hotter than most species in the galaxy. Our normal body temperature is almost fever level for some aliens. Lieutenant Park basically turned herself into a living heating pad. "Will the cub survive?" Yuna asked. Her voice was rough. Minho finally stopped working and turned to face her. There was something in his eyes, something between wonder and respect. "Yes, she will survive." "You saved her life, Lieutenant." Yuna let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. The cub was sleeping now, wrapped in warm blankets, surrounded by heating pads. She was small and fragile and alone in the universe. Her mother was dead. Her people had left her behind. She had no one except the strange human who had carried her through the storm. "We have a problem," Captain Beak said quietly. Yuna looked at her. "What problem?" "The Vreth Dominion will want their cub back. The Vreth Dominion left her to die. That may be true, but she is still their citizen, their property by their laws. If they find out we have her, they will demand her return. Yuna felt anger rise in her chest, hot and sudden. Property? She's a child, not a piece of equipment. I know that, but the Vreth do not see it the same way. The captain's voice was tired. Their culture is different from ours. They value strength and usefulness above all else. Children are not seen as valuable until they can contribute to society. Until then, they are considered acceptable losses in times of crisis. That's insane. That's how they see the universe. Captain Beak walked over to the medical table and looked down at the sleeping cub. Her hard face softened, just a little. I don't agree with it. None of us do. But we have to be careful. If we keep this cub without permission, it could cause a diplomatic incident. Maybe even war. Taiho spoke up from the doorway. Yuna had not noticed him standing there. I checked the records, he said. The Vreth declared the Keth-4 colony a loss 3 standard days ago. Everyone was ordered to evacuate. Anyone left behind was listed as acceptable casualties. Captain Beak turned to look at him. Including children? Including children. It's all in the official documentation. They knew there were cubs in that colony. They evacuated anyway and left them behind. The room went silent. Yuna looked at the cub again. She was dreaming, her small legs moving like she was running through snow. Running towards something. Or maybe running away. She has a name, Yuna said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. When I was carrying her back to the ship, I looked at her fur. It has a purple shine in certain light. So I named her Bora. It means purple in Korean. Captain Beak raised an eyebrow. You named an alien cub with a Korean name? She needed a name. She needed to be someone, not just something. Yuna met the captain's eyes. If we send her back to the Vreth, they will not take care of her. They will put her in some facility where no one will hold her or comfort her. She will grow up knowing that her own people abandoned her, that her mother died trying to save her, and it meant nothing to anyone. And if we keep her, then she grows up knowing that someone cared, that someone came for her, that she mattered. The captain was quiet for a long time. Outside the medical bay, Yuna could hear the ship's engines humming, carrying them away from the frozen world, carrying them toward the future, whatever that future might hold. Finally, Captain Beak sighed. I'll need to report this to command. They won't like it. There will be questions, hearings, maybe worse. I don't care, Yuna said. I know you don't. A small smile crossed the captain's face. That's why I'm not going to stop you. She turned and walked toward the door. Dr. Cha, make sure our guest has everything she needs. Lieutenant Park, you're officially assigned as the Cub's caretaker until further notice. Thank you, Captain. Beak paused at the door. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is just beginning. She left. Yuna walked over to the medical table and sat down in the chair beside it. Laura was still sleeping, her small chest rising and falling with each breath. One of her tiny paws reached outward, like she was searching for something even in her dreams. Yuna reached out and took that small paw in her hand. I'm here, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Laura's paw closed around her finger. Outside, the stars turned slowly in the endless black. The ship flew on through the void, carrying its crew toward whatever waited ahead. There would be challenges coming, enemies, hard choices. But for now, in this small room, there was only warmth. There was only a woman and a child who had found each other in the cold. And sometimes, that was enough. 2 weeks passed like water flowing down a river. Bora grew stronger every day. She learned to walk on her own 2 legs again. She learned to eat solid food. She learned words, simple human words that she spoke in her small, chirping voice. Yuna, she would say, reaching up with her paws. "Yuna, carry me." And Yuna always did. The crew of the ship fell in love with the little cub. Taiho built her toys from spare parts. Dr. Minho checked on her health every morning. Even Captain Beak, who tried to act strict and serious, would sometimes sneak treats to Bora when she thought no one was looking. But Yuna knew this peace could not last forever. The ship docked at Station Helix 9, a large trading post where ships from many worlds came to buy and sell and rest. Yuna carried Bora through the crowded halls, showing her the wonders of the station. There were aliens of every shape and color. There were shops selling things from 1,000 different planets. There were lights and sounds and smells that Bora had never experienced before. The cub's eyes went wide with wonder. "What is that?" she asked, pointing at a fountain that sprayed colored water into the air. "That's a fountain," Yuna said, smiling. "It's just for looking at. For making people happy. Why? Because beauty makes life better, even when things are hard." Bora thought about this. Then she nodded, accepting it the way children accept things that adults find difficult to explain. They were near the food market when Yuna felt something change in the air. The crowd around them began to move differently. People were stepping aside, making room for something. Voices went quiet. Eyes turned away. Yuna looked up and felt her heart go cold. A group of Wrath was walking toward them. There were 5 of them. 4 were soldiers in dark armor, carrying weapons that gleamed under the station lights. But the one in front was different. He was tall, taller than any Wrath Yuna had ever seen. His silver fur was crossed with old scars. His amber eyes burned with a cold fire. He stopped 3 meters away from Yuna and looked down at her. Then his eyes moved to Bora. "So," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "This is the cub." Bora pressed herself against Yuna's leg, trembling. She did not know this Wrath, but she understood danger when she saw it. "Who are you?" Yuna asked. She kept her voice steady, even though her heart was pounding. "I am Kelthvorn, envoy of the Wrath Dominion." He did not bow or show any respect. "You have something that belongs to us. You will return it now." She is not a thing. She is a child. She is property of the Dominion. All Wrath children belong to the state until they are old enough to earn their independence. Yuna felt her hands curl into fists. The Dominion abandoned her, left her to freeze to death on Kethfor. Her mother died trying to protect her, and your people did nothing. Her mother made a choice, a foolish choice. The evacuation orders were clear. Those who could not keep up were to be left behind. Kelth's eyes showed no emotion. "This is the way of our people. The weak die so the strong can survive." She was a baby. She couldn't keep up because she was a baby. Exactly. Babies are useless. They consume resources without giving anything back. In times of crisis, they are acceptable losses. He said the words like he was talking about broken equipment, not living beings. This is not cruelty. This is logic. Yuna wanted to scream at him. She wanted to hit him, to make him understand how wrong he was. But she knew that would solve nothing. So she took a deep breath and spoke calmly. "If Bora goes back with you, what happens to her?" "She will be placed in a state facility. She will be raised with other orphans. When she is old enough, she will be tested. If she is strong enough, she will be allowed to join society. If not..." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. "And her mother? Will anyone remember her? Will anyone honor her sacrifice?" Kelth's expression did not change. Her mother failed in her duty. She chose sentiment over survival. There is nothing to honor. Bora made a small sound, a whimper of fear and confusion. She did not understand everything that was being said, but she understood enough. These people wanted to take her away. These people had let her mother die. Una knelt down and picked up the cub, holding her close. Bora buried her face in Una's neck, her small body shaking. "No," Una said. Kelf's eyes narrowed. "No? No, I will not give her to you. She stays with me." The soldiers behind Kelf moved forward, hands reaching for their weapons. But before they could do anything, more people appeared. Captain Beak stepped out of the crowd, flanked by Taiho and Dr. Minho. Behind them came station security, armed and ready. "This is neutral territory," Captain Beak said. Her voice was cold as ice. "You have no authority here, envoy." Kelf looked at the humans surrounding him. His lip curled back, showing sharp teeth. "You would risk war over one cub? One useless, worthless cub?" "We would risk war over any child," Beak said. "That is the difference between us and you. We do not abandon our young. We do not leave the helpless to die. And we do not call any child worthless." The envoy stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a cold and bitter sound. "You humans are fools. Your sentiment will be your destruction." "Maybe," Beak said, "but at least we will face that destruction together. Not alone in the cold." Kelf turned his eyes to Una one last time. "This is not over. The Dominion will have what belongs to it." Then he turned and walked away, his soldiers following behind him. Una held Bora tight and watched them go. Her heart was still pounding. Her hands were still shaking. But she was not afraid. She had faced the cold of Kethfor and survived. She could face this too. The Galactic Council met on a world called Nexus Prime at the center of known space. It was a place where the great powers of the galaxy came together to settle disputes and make laws. Representatives from 37 different species sat in a massive circular chamber, their seats rising up like steps around a central floor. Una had never seen anything like it. The chamber was bigger than any building she had ever been inside. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed up there, drifting slowly across a sky of glass and metal. The voices of hundreds of beings echoed off the walls, creating a sound like the ocean dot. She held Bora's paw as they walked into the chamber. The cub had grown in the months since the rescue. She was taller now, stronger, and her purple-sheen fur gleamed under the great lights. But she was still a child, and Una could feel her trembling. "It's okay," Una whispered. "I'm right here." "There are so many of them," Bora said. Her voice was small. "They're all looking at us. Let them look. You have nothing to be ashamed of." The Vreth delegation sat on one side of the chamber. Envoy Kelf Vorn was there, along with several other officials in dark robes. Their amber eyes tracked Bora as she walked past, and Una felt a chill run down her spine. The human delegation sat on the opposite side. Captain Beak was there, along with Ambassador Yunji Han, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes who had been fighting for alien rights for 30 years. Dr. Minho and Taiho sat behind them, ready to provide evidence if needed. At the center of the chamber, on a raised platform, sat the Council Arbiter. It was a being unlike any Una had ever seen, made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. It was ancient, older than most civilizations, and it spoke for no species except justice itself. "This session will come to order," the Arbiter said. Its voice was like music, high and clear and strange. "We are here to decide the matter of the Vreth cub, known as Bora. The Vreth Dominion claims her as their property. The United Earth Fleet claims sanctuary rights. Both sides will present their case." Kelf Vorn stood first. He walked to the center of the floor and spoke in a loud, confident voice. "The facts of this case are simple. The cub was born on Vreth territory. She is Vreth by blood and by law. She belongs to the Dominion. The humans took her without permission. This is theft. She was abandoned, Ambassador Han said from her seat. Your people left her to die. She was part of an acceptable loss calculation. Resources were limited. Priorities were set. The cub did not meet the criteria for evacuation. Because she was a baby? Because she had no value. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some of the alien species looked shocked. Others looked thoughtful. A few, Yuna noticed with disgust, seemed to agree with the Vreth. The Arbiter raised a crystalline hand for silence. The Dominion's position is noted. Ambassador Han, you may present your case. Yunji stood. She was small compared to the Vreth, but her presence filled the room. The child was abandoned in a life-threatening situation. Her mother died trying to save her. When our officer found her, she was minutes away from death. Lieutenant Park risked her own life to save the cub. Under galactic law, that gives us sanctuary rights. Sanctuary rights do not override species sovereignty, Kelth argued. Species sovereignty does not include the right to murder children. It was not murder. It was resource allocation. The argument went back and forth for hours. Both sides presented evidence. Both sides quoted laws and treaties that were hundreds of years old. The representatives from other species asked questions, some friendly, some hostile. Yuna watched it all in silence. She held Bara's paw and waited. She knew that all the laws and arguments in the universe might not be enough. She knew that politics often won over justice, but she also knew something else. Finally, the Arbiter raised its hand again. We have heard from both sides. But there is one voice we have not heard. Its crystal eyes turned to the center of the floor. The child herself. Bora, will you speak? Bora looked up at Yuna. Her amber eyes were wide with fear. You don't have to, Yuna whispered. I can speak for you. No. Bora's voice was quiet but firm. I want to say something. She let go of Yuna's paw and walked to the center of the floor. She was so small, standing there alone, surrounded by the great powers of the galaxy. But she did not cry. She did not run away. She stood straight and tall, like her mother must have stood before the end. I remember the cold, she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. I remember being so cold that I couldn't feel my paws anymore. I remember my mother holding me, keeping me warm with her body. I remember when she stopped moving. The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye was on the small cub. The big ones came and told everyone to leave. My mother asked them to wait. She said the cubs were too small to travel fast. They said no. They said we were not important. Bora's voice shook a little, but she kept going. My mother stayed with me. She said she would not leave me alone. She held me until she couldn't hold me anymore. Tears were running down Yuna's face. She wanted to go to Bora, to hold her, to protect her from these memories. But she stayed where she was. This was Bora's moment. Then she came. Bora pointed at Yuna. The human. She found me in the snow. She took off her warm clothes and put me against her heart. She carried me through the storm. She sang to me when I was scared. Her small hands curled into fists. The big ones say I'm theirs. But they did not come for me. She did. She looked at the Vreth delegation. Kelthvorn's face was like stone. You say I have no value, Bora said. You say I am property. But she saw value in me. She saw someone worth saving. She turned back to the Arbiter. I know you have to decide where I go. I know I'm small and I don't know many things yet. But I know one thing. She walked away from the center of the floor. She walked past the Vreth, past the soldiers, past Kelthvorn and his cold amber eyes. She walked straight to Yuna and took her hand. I want to stay with my mother. The word hung in the air like a bell that had been. Rung.mother.yuna knelt down and wrapped her arms around Bora. She held her tight and closed her eyes and let the tears fall. Whatever happened next, this moment was hers. This moment belonged to them. And no law in the galaxy could take it away. The Galactic Council took 3 days to reach its decision. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of hoping and fearing. Una spent most of that time with Bora, walking through the gardens of Nexus Prime, looking at the strange flowers that bloomed under alien suns. "What if they send me back?" Bora asked one evening, as the sky turned purple and gold. Una squeezed her paw. "Then I will come and get you. No matter how long it takes. No matter how far I have to go. Promise?" "Promise." On the 4th day, they were called back to the council chamber. The room was just as crowded as before. Every seat filled, every eye watching. Una felt her heart beating so hard that she thought it might break through her chest. The arbiter stood at the center, its crystal body glowing with inner light. "This council has considered all evidence and testimony," it said. "We have reviewed the laws of both the Wrath Dominion and the United Earth Fleet. We have listened to arguments from both sides." It paused. "And we have listened to the child." Una held her breath. "It is the judgment of this council that the cub known as Bora was abandoned in a life-threatening situation. Her own people made a deliberate choice to leave her behind. They declared her an acceptable loss. By their own actions, they gave up their claim to her." A sound went through the chamber. Some voices were angry. Some were relieved. Furthermore, this council recognizes the right of sanctuary. Lieutenant Una Park saved the child's life at great risk to her own. Under the oldest laws of the galaxy, a life saved creates a bond that cannot be broken by political boundaries. Kelthvorn stood up, his face twisted with rage. "This is wrong. The cub is Wrath property." "The cub is a person," the arbiter said. His voice was calm but powerful. "And persons cannot be property. This is the foundation of galactic law." The Wrath Dominion would do well to remember it. The envoy opened his mouth to argue more, but other Wrath officials pulled him back to his seat. They knew they had lost. "It is therefore the decision of this council," the arbiter continued, "that Bora will remain with the human delegation. She will be granted asylum under Earth's laws, and she will be allowed to petition for full adoption when she comes of age." Una felt like the world had stopped spinning. She looked down at Bora, who was staring at the arbiter with wide eyes. "What does that mean?" Bora whispered. Una knelt down and took both of Bora's paws in her hands. "It means you're staying with me. It means you're free." Bora's face changed. The fear melted away. In its place came something else, something bright and beautiful. Joy. She threw her arms around Una's neck and held on tight. Una hugged her back, tears streaming down her face, laughing and crying at the same time. Behind them, the human delegation was cheering. Captain Beak was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time Una had ever seen. Dr. Minho was wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Even Taiho, the quiet engineer, was pumping his fist in the air. They had won. The years that followed were not always easy. The Wrath Dominion was angry, and they made trouble whenever they could. Some people in the galaxy thought the humans had done the wrong thing. There were threats and arguments and long nights of worry. But there was also growth. Other species began to question the Wrath's practices. Young Wrath, raised on stories of the human who walked into a blizzard to save a child, began to wonder if their own culture was missing something. Some of them came to human space, looking for something they could not find at home. And Bora grew. She grew tall and strong, her silver fur thick and healthy, the purple shine gleaming whenever she moved. She studied hard and learned everything she could. She became a xenobiologist, like her mother. Like Una, 20 years after the rescue, Bora stood on the bridge of her own ship. Wearing the uniform of the United Earth Fleet, she was lieutenant commander now. one of the youngest officers ever to reach that rank. Her crew loved her. Her commanders trusted her. She had become everything anyone could have hoped for. And sometimes, late at night, she would stand at the viewport and watch the stars drift by. Yuna found her there one evening. She was older now, her hair gray, her face lined with years. But her eyes were still bright, and her smile was still warm. "Thinking again?" Yuna asked, standing beside her. Bora smiled. "Always. It's your fault. You taught me to think too much. I taught you to think carefully. There's a difference." They stood in silence for a while, watching the universe turn around them. "I was thinking about that night," Bora said finally. "On HFY. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had followed orders? If you had left me there?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "No, I don't wonder. Some decisions aren't really decisions at all. They're just who you are. When I saw you lying there in the cold, I didn't think about orders or politics or consequences. I just thought, this child needs help, and I helped. That simple? That's simple." Bora turned to look at her mother, her human mother, who had no fur and no claws and no amber eyes. Her mother, who had wrapped a dying alien cub in her embrace and carried her through a blizzard. Her mother, who had faced down armies and governments and never let go. "I'm glad," Bora said. "I'm glad that humans are who they are." Yuna reached out and took her hand. It was large now, clawed and powerful, but still reaching for her the same way it had all those years ago. "So am I," she said. Outside the viewport, the stars burned on, cold and distant and eternal. But inside the ship, there was warmth. There was love. There was the bond between a mother and daughter that crossed species and cultures and all the empty space between worlds. The galaxy was vast and often cruel. There was darkness out there, and danger, and beings who measured worth in usefulness instead of love. But there were also humans. Strange, soft, warm humans, who carried dying cubs against their hearts, who stood before councils and said no, who measured worth in heartbeats instead of numbers. And as long as there were humans in the galaxy, no child would ever die alone in the cold. Not while there was warmth to give. Not while there was love to share. The ship flew on through the endless night, carrying its crew toward whatever came next. The future was uncertain. The challenges were many. But Bora was not afraid. She had been born in the cold. She had been saved by warmth. And she would spend the rest of her life making sure that warmth spread across the stars. This was her promise. This was her legacy. This was the gift of her human mother, passed on forever.